Good morning, Athens Church. How are we feeling this morning? Oh, it's a good place to be in Athens Church this morning. Listen, if I haven't had the honor and privilege of meeting you, my name is Trevor. I have the honor of serving our youth, our middle schoolers here at Athens Church. And we're in this series called Lessons from Proverbs. And in this series, we're going through different pieces of Proverbs, different wisdom, ancient texts that these different kings and these different queens and these different people of high status who relayed information to us. And right now, we're reading as a church the book of Proverbs, and it's easy to jump in. It's easy to follow. So if you want to jump in, you totally can. But right now, since the day is June 23rd, we're reading the chapter of the day is Proverbs 23. So the day coincides with which chapter we are reading. If you want to know how to jump in, you can jump online and see. It is super fun and super easy. But in this series, Bronson kicked us off with wisdom for our plans, and Sean followed with wisdom for our finances, and Stephen talked about wisdom in our fear. And today, I get to talk to you about a passion for wisdom, having a passion for wisdom. Listen, when I was growing up, I grew up in the 90s. I know I don't look like a 90s kid, but I was a 90s baby and kid, born 1990. And growing up, there were these stars that I looked at. And when I say stars, I mean people, these people that we look at and we see who have this inspiration. They found this spark, they found this purpose. And as they did what they did, people were just amazed, encouraged. You know what I'm talking about? You've seen people like this. You have different people like this. But for me, there were certain people. Michael Jordan was my GOAT. Michael Jordan was one of the people that I looked up growing up, and I was like, man, I want to be like him. So I asked my dad, I said, hey, Dad, can we purchase a basketball goal and I can shoot around? He goes, yeah. So I did that with my brother, and we played basketball. The other person that I looked at that was brilliant, that seemed to tap into their amazingness and shine was Michael Jackson. And so I like to sing and dance, and as a kid growing up, I'd walk around the house doing this number, like, doing that thing, trying to do it, or I'd be like, hee hee, hoo hoo. My mom was like, if hee hee don't be quiet, I'm gonna smack him. Real talk. And so I had to figure out something else to do. And we lived in Atlanta at the time, and the Olympics happened in '96, and I loved track, I loved running, and there was this guy by the name of Michael Johnson who was a sprinter, and he was super fast. He won all these gold medals, so I was like, oh, I want to be like that. So I started running around my house, and my mom's like, you need to calm down. So I was like, all right, I need to figure something else out to do. And growing up, my father used to love boxing. So it was this man by the name of Mike Tyson. All these guys by the name have Michael. If you were Michael in the 90s, I hope you were great. But Mike Tyson was this guy who was boxing, and I was like, Dad, can I get punching gloves? I don't want to fight you. I want to fight my brother. And he was a little bit older than me. So me and my brother, we were going at it. We were jabbing. I was bobbing and weaving and all that cool stuff. And I got a little bit too Mike Tyson-y because whenever my brother was fighting dirty, I tried to bite his ear, and I was like, I need to let this go. I need to find another hobby. But I got older, and as I grew older, I really didn't look at stars like that. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Maybe there's stars that you have in your life or that you looked at when you were younger that you'll be able to identify, oh, this person, that person, and you saw these qualities in them. But what I was really seeing as I got older was this drive that they had, this drive they possessed where they were able to tap into what seemed like their purpose. And when they lived this purpose, when they tapped into this thing, they came to life. And as they came to life, we were able to observe these people, and it brought us to life. We were entertained by them, or there was something that was within us that sparked because something in them had sparked. That's why we call them stars. They're people we can look up to that see that they're living in that spark. And that was something that I saw as I was growing older that I said, you know what, that's what I want. That's what I want. And for you and I, every single one of us, every single person in this room who can hear my voice, you were born with this spark. You were born with that feeling, that drive, that to figure out what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I to do? Why are we all here? We have this thing inside of us that is craving, that has this longing to matter and to do things that matter in the world. We have this thing that itches our heart, that reminds us that there is a purpose of why we're here, and that there's something to do that should be bigger than us, something that we should do that should be greater than us, that should be bigger than us. It's to be someone that is valuable and adds value in a way that outlives us. It is to add value and to find that value, that thing that makes you come to life just like that. Like when you're laying in your bed and you wake up and you know you have that sense of destiny, of purpose, something deep to inspire you, that's inspiring you to inspire the rest of the world. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says it like this: God has set eternity in the hearts of mankind. That God has set eternity in the hearts of mankind. What does that mean? That means that he has put something in you, that he's placed something in your very fabric, in your DNA. He's placed it in your heart to be of someone of value, and that you do something that is so valuable that it outlives you. That outlives you. And so as I was learning about this in my young 20s, and I had found this spark, and I was trying to get this understanding of who am I? Why am I here? What am I to do? What is my purpose here on earth? God, if you placed me here, then why? Then why am I here? And so I began to read books, and I did all these different things, journaling. I went to different conferences. I went to Calais, all these different things, seminars. The podcast wasn't big at the time, so I was YouTubing. I was in therapy. I'm meeting with people. I'm going to church. I'm doing everything that I can do. But one of the best things that I did was connect with God. And the way that I connect with God is through nature. For me, nature is the greatest way that I connect with God. And specifically, it's the stars. Like when I stargaze, things just click for me. Anything nature, though. Most people know this about me, and those who are really close to me know that when I'm at work, I'm usually by a window or somewhere outside, because that's just where I like to work. I just feel energized by it. But if I'm at the beach and I'm watching the sunrise and sunset, things are just clicking for me. I'm able to hear God. I'm able to see God. I'm able to feel God. Or if I'm walking by a river and I'm listening to the movement of the river, I'm listening to God speak to me. But specifically when I look at the stars, I just feel like things click for me. It's just my pathway of being able to hear and connect with God. And for us, not all of us are wired that way. Some of us have different wirings that means that we connect with God. But for me, the stars, and I had this busted up Plymouth Breeze that was burgundy. It was actually like 4 different colors because it was fading. But I would sit on the hood at night and I would stargaze. And if you've ever stargazed at night, you will realize that you're not the only one out there, that some bug will land on you. And you're like in this deep moment with God, and you're like swatting around trying to kill things. You're like, whoa, what is that? I have no idea what it is. I never saw it. But I'm stargazing and I'm looking up and I'm just asking God these questions. God, why am I here? What is my purpose? What did you design me for? What is my destiny, God? I know you didn't place me here by accident, that there is a reason, but what is that reason? Because I know that there is something deep within me. I know there's something deep within you that longs to live a life that is meaningful, that adds value, and that is full of value. So I said, okay, I'm looking at these stars, and I feel like all of a sudden it just clicked. It was almost like the stars connected for me, and I was like, I know. I felt this inspiration, this spark, this drive to be someone and to do some things that would be of value and to add value to others. And so what did I do? I hop off my old Plymouth Breeze and I run in the house and I start taking notes. I'm like 20 years old and I'm writing down things. I'm writing big things and small things. The big things look like, I want to get married. I want to be a great son. I want to be a great brother. I want to be a great father. I'm saying all these different things that how I want to be and who I want to be. And as I'm looking at my career, I'm like, I want to preach. I want to teach. I want to lead worship. I want to do all these different things that I'm writing out. And then I'm looking at the wife part, and I'm like, I'm single at the time, and I'm looking at the wife part. And anybody who stargazes, you know that we're like weird in a way. We're like philosophical. We like quantum physics, like all this weird stuff that people don't like to listen to. And so I'm asking God, God, as long as she's able to listen to my weird stuff, I'm good. So I write that down on my list. And then I get to other things as well. Like I could be practicing throughout the week or throughout the month. I'm saying, okay, God, I'm a broke college student, but I want to help and do some things. I want to make a difference in the world. So what that looked like for me, I don't know if you all have read the 4 book by Jeff Henderson, What Do You Want to Be Known For? But I would do things like when I'm at Quick Trip, I'll pay for the person that was behind me. Say, hey, come on up. I'll take care of your meal or whatever you're getting. Or if I went to Chick-fil-A or different things of that nature, okay, I want to take care of that person. Or I would go to a public place. People in my small group, they know this about me. I would walk around public places just to see who I can meet and hopefully give them an encouraging word. I was doing that back then. I was like, this is what I want to do to add value. So I'm writing this list, and I call my mentor up. I had many mentors, but I called this mentor up specifically, and I said, hey, I would like to meet with you. And he's kind of like, okay. Now, this mentor was different. He was like a really administrative guy. He saw life in numbers, and I barely saw life at all. And he's just very clear and blunt. And I was like, hey, I got this thing that I want to share with you. And I slide it to him. I said, this is how I think I can find my value and add value to the world. So I slide him this list, and he looks at it. You know, I'm feeling good, and I think he's going to respond in a certain way that's like, wow, Trev, this is awesome. He just goes, slides it back. Now, listen, I like to be confident. I like to think I'm confident. But in that moment, I wanted to hide. And he says this to me. He goes, Trevor, this is a good list. But a lot of these things are planned. However, most of the life that you're going to live, hear me out on this, most of the life that we live is actually in the unplanned. He goes, for instance, we spend most of our lives in the point A to point B, but before we get to point B, there are 1,000 steps that occur. That if you open your eyes and you see and you ask God and you ask him, hey God, let me see how I can be valuable today, he will show you 1,000 things before your point A to point B. I said, okay, explain more to me. He goes, okay, if you plan to go to Kroger, to the grocery store, to shop, Trader Joe's, wherever you guys may shop. If you plan to go to this grocery store, point A, point B. But as you're going to this grocery store, you're driving and you see a woman at the side of the road and it looks like she has a flat tire. And so you pull over. And as you pull over, you look and you see that she has a flat tire and she doesn't have anything to fix it. But you have the tools to do something. And you look in the back and you see that there's kids there. You make eye contact with the kids. You come up to the lady and say, hey, is it okay if I help? I have some tools. Do you have a spare tire? She says, yes. And so what do you do in that moment? You begin to help her. And as you begin to help her, you're doing your thing, you finish, and you stand up and you look at her and you look in the eyes and there's something that you feel inside that brings you to life. And as you're looking at her eyes, there's something that she's feeling as well that brings her to life. It's this random act of kindness that creates this spark. You weren't planning on seeing her. You weren't planning on seeing the people that you passed on the road. You were just planning to go from point A to point B, from your home to the grocery store, back to your house. That's what you planned, but there was so much life, so much opportunity that happens in between that you never planned for on how you can make an impact on others. That also affects you. And he goes, you've been on a missions trip before. There are times where you've planned on going to a missions trip with the hope of helping this orphanage or helping these group of people out or helping these people out. And you're like, okay, this is why I'm going. But as you go, you then realize you connect with the family, you connect with someone, you connect with the child. And that child changes your heart more than you thought. You weren't planning on meeting that child to change you. But when you get back from that mission trip, all you're talking about is that child. How they changed your life, how you see life differently, the joy that they possessed with the little they had. You weren't planning on that, but that shaped you, that shifted things in your heart. Maybe it's like someone crosses your mind. You're planning on doing this thing, then all of a sudden someone crosses your mind. So you decide, hey, I'm gonna give this person a call. You give that person a call, and they say, hey, I was just thinking about you. And then you begin to have a conversation with this person where you give them an encouraging word and they give you an encouraging word back. You weren't planning on it. It's just something that happened. The life that we live, most of the life that we live is in this in-between space. If most of our life, your life is in the space between your planned moments, how much value does that moment have? How much value does that moment have? If most of our life, the life that we live is in planned moments, how much power does that have? So I looked and I said, well, how do I do this? How do I prepare for these moments to live? How do I prepare to be ready for these moments that are unplanned? And he said, Trevor, and he knew this. He said, read Proverbs. To read Proverbs. Now, as I'm talking to my mentor, he knows that I'm reading the Bible. I talk with him once a month. He knows that I was reading the Bible. I actually had passed Proverbs, and I was in Daniel. But he said, Trevor, reread Proverbs. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I will read Proverbs. And it agitated me, but I jumped into it. And the thing that I began to find is that all these things that are being spoken about are from kings to princes, queens to princesses, fathers to sons, mothers to daughters, generation to generation. And what they're saying is this: my child, my son, my daughter, pursue wisdom. This is people who held a certain class, a certain royalty, a certain title, and they're not telling them to chase the crown. They're not telling them to chase this thing. They're not telling them to chase these possessions. They're not telling them to go to war. They're saying to them, hey, listen, my child, pursue wisdom. Do not let it out of your sight. Don't chase possession. Don't chase the prize. Don't chase the thing. Pursue wisdom. Never let it go. Hold fast to it. Avoid idolatry. Avoid foolishness. Avoid immorality. Always keep wisdom ahead of you and before you. Seek and pursue wisdom. Chase after it with all that you have. It is the constant theme of Proverbs, is to have this zeal, to be after wisdom, to have this drive and this commitment for wisdom. They could be telling them all of these different things, these different strategies on how to conquer, how to keep. Some of the things that is being taught in our world today: chasing the title, chasing the status, chasing that prize, chasing that possession, chasing that home, chasing that thing, whatever it may be. No. Here in Proverbs, it says to pursue wisdom, to seek wisdom. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, man, this is amazing. But all of a sudden, it clicked for me in a way, because there's a specific way that I connect with God and God connects with me, and it's through the stars. But as I was reading the prophets, I was in the book of Daniel, and I read this in Daniel 12:3. It says this: those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Those who will shine, those who are wise will shine like the brilliance of the sky. Those who are wise will shine like the stars. Listen, there's many stars we have looked up to and said, man, these people are stars because of this or because of that. But the scriptures tell us that we shine, we become a star when we pursue wisdom. When we live wisely, we begin to shine. And it is a way that radiates for others to where they can see, they can have that spark. And they can live in that, to pursue wisdom. And many of us, as we're dreaming, we want to pursue this stuff, and we want to know, how do I create this? How do I do this? How do I live out my vision? How do I live out my mission? How do I live out my purpose? Look, check this scripture out here in Proverbs 3:19. It says this: by wisdom, the Lord laid the earth's foundation. By understanding, he set the heavens in place. Listen, when God created the earth, when God created everything in it, he looked at it in Genesis and he said, it is good. And he created it with wisdom. Now the earth has value and gives us value. How do I know? Take a deep breath right now. It is what God created. And God created it with wisdom for you and I to benefit from. He created the earth with value so that we can find value in it. But ultimately, it's to point us back to him, to say, God, you created this with wisdom. How much more the things that we long to create in life, whether it's a good life, whether it's that dream, whether it's that career, whether if you're entrepreneurial and you're thinking about creating something, whether it's to have a great marriage, whether it's to have great relationships, whether it's to be a good person, whether it is to find your purpose, if you're trying to create something or find something, we see that God himself created with wisdom. He even created you with wisdom. He was strategic on how he knitted you and planned you, and he even planted the spark that you feel inside of you, the purpose that you have to accomplish something, to do something of value and be valuable. He placed it in you. And if he did that with wisdom, how much more do we need wisdom to see it? We need wisdom. We have to have this drive after wisdom. But we can live an alternative life to that. We've seen people who are successful, who've achieved much, who've gained riches and wealth and power, but they live foolishly. What wisdom says is, hey, you can choose that route, but that route, when you choose foolishness, you will be made of an example of what not to do. And when you choose wisdom, you will be made of an example of what to do. And it will be this dividing fork in the road where you can choose one or the other. Pick your choice. And God is saying, choose wisdom. Don't pursue the riches. Don't pursue this. Pursue wisdom, and those things may come. Pursue wisdom. And as I was learning these things, and as I'm sitting with different people and different mentors, there were things that they shared with me. So I would like to share with you some of the things that I learned and give you some of these 4 steps that I saw. Is one, to be aware of the need. To know that you have a neediness, that you need wisdom. Check this out. Proverbs 4:7 says this. The beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom. Pause. Okay. I got some people already tracking with me. It says here, the beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom? You're like, duh? Like, yes. The beginning of getting wealthy is getting wealthy? Like, tell me more. And it sounds so simple, but it's so profound. I'll explain it to you. When you wake up in the morning, you don't think to yourself, I need to breathe. You just breathe. You don't even have to think about breathing right now. You're just doing it. When it comes to your heart beating, you don't have to think, oh, heartbeat. No, it just does it. Your heart just beats. But for you and I, we naturally don't choose wisdom. If we're left to our own demise, we will do things foolishly, thinking we're doing things great. We will choose the foolish path all day, every day. So what this passage is saying is, hey, wake up. When you get up, before you do that foolish thing, you need to think of wisdom. You need to know that you need wisdom. You need to be aware that you need wisdom. It does not come naturally. It is something that you have to pursue, something you have to fight for, something you have to work for and be committed to. You need wisdom. I need wisdom. And the thing is, we can have the self-identification, we can have the honesty and the humility to say, oh, this is what I need. I need to change these things. And some of us possess some of those qualities, some greater than others. I don't really have that quality where I'm able to look at myself and see what I need to change and fix. But that's when others come into play. That's when we rely on others, because the truth is I can see what's in front of me, but I cannot see behind me. And I need people around me. I need a small group. I need to get involved with a small group. I need accountability partners. I need people who will tell me the hard things that I'm not willing to say to my own self. Because the truth of the matter is, it's going to cost you. Seeking wisdom will cost you. That's the other part of this passage. The beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom. Though it costs you, pursue it. It may cost all that you have, but get it. Get it. So when we look for wisdom and that person tells you the thing you don't want to hear, it may cost you. It may cost you a little bit of your pride. It may cost you a little bit of your arrogance. It may cost us something, but the reward is so much richer. If we want to live a life that is valuable and that adds value, we need to be aware of our need for wisdom. The second thing is this: avoid the loop. To avoid the loop of foolishness. Listen, we are humans. We make mistakes. We will make mistakes. We'll repeat mistakes. And we'll even make mistakes that we can share immediately, like, oh, I got to get this off of my chest. And there's some mistakes that we'll make where it will hurt to open up a little bit about it. But we all make mistakes. However, when we make a mistake that turns into a habit, that turns into something that we identify as, and we begin to say things like this: oh, this is just who I am. This is just how I'm wired. This is just me. When we begin to say things like this, we have now become a victim of foolishness. We have now become a victim of foolishness, and we could criticize whatever wisdom may come our way. We get caught in this loop, and it's hard to get out of it. And here's the thing, we all have a loop to some degree. We all have this loop. The scripture says this in Proverbs 26:11. It says this, as a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness. As a dog returns to his vomit, so is a fool that repeats his foolishness. It is in a loop that we get caught in. A great imagery of this is in Exodus, where we hear about the Israelites who watch God do all of these miracles, all of these fascinating things, and they're amazed by all the things that God has done. He's parted the Red Sea, and he's doing all these miracles. He's bringing them food, and he's doing these things. And they're like, oh my goodness, God is so amazing. And what was meant to be an 11-day journey in the wilderness turned into 40 years because they got caught in this loop. They got caught in this spiral. And they became a victim of foolishness, where they gave up their rights for God saying, hey, this is your land. You can get to it in about 2 weeks. And it took them 40 years. They were just in this loop. Now, you and I, when we get caught in this loop, it may not be wandering in a desert. It may look a little bit differently. It may look like apathy. It may look like laziness. Whatever we resort to when we're pushing that person away who may be giving us the wise saying or the thing that we do not want to hear, whatever thing we resort to, taking control over things, running away, whatever it may look like, there's something that we all repeat. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to avoid the loop of foolishness. It's something we do consciously or subconsciously that avoids wisdom. The third thing is this, to live in the present. To live in the present. In the passages, in Proverbs, it's so beautiful. They describe wisdom as a person. They describe wisdom as this person that you get to know, that you know personally, that you do life with, because we don't arrive at wisdom like it's a destination. We walk with wisdom. We journey with wisdom. It's not a place that we go and we say we reach. No, it's a life that we live where we're walking with wisdom. Because they talk about it like a person, they're hoping that we're able to get the concept and the imagery that wisdom is not something you just go to as if it's a place. It's something that you walk with as if it's a person. You do life with wisdom. You walk with wisdom. And as we walk with wisdom, we become wiser. We begin to join in with wisdom. It becomes a character trait of which we have. It says this in Proverbs, those who sit with the wise become wise. And Justin Halleck's going to bring an amazing message about this next week. So I want you guys to hear this. But those who sit with wisdom become wise. If you sit around a group of wise people, you will notice that you'll start to learn things and act the way that they act. If they're acting in wisdom, you will follow that pattern. You will act wisely as well. So one thing for us to live a life of value and add value to others is to live in the present, to walk and journey with wisdom. The fourth thing is this, and this is my favorite thing, is to connect with God. You and I have different ways of connecting with God. For me, it is the stars, it is nature. For someone else, it may be conversations with a person. It may be like big group settings like this. There's different ways that you and I can connect with God because God has wired us differently, each and every single one of us. He's created this thing within us, this spark within us, but when he created it, he was wise enough to not have everyone be the same. We're all different, and he created us differently. So there's ways that you can connect with God that's different from me. So knowing how you connect with God will help you connect the dots from point A to point B and the things in between. Knowing how you connect with God will help you connect the dots. And a great resource for this is this book called Sacred Pathways by Gary L. Thomas. And in this book, he gives an assessment, and you're able to read, and you're able to learn about the ways in which you can connect with God the most. Because when you're able to connect with God, like for me looking at the stars, things begin to click. things begin to click and things make sense. You have that aha moment. You realize the thing that was placed inside of you to live a purpose, to walk with life, that spark that gives life, to shine like the stars. Those things begin to click and you begin to live it out. And there's things that God will share with you like no one else can share with you. The things that I'm saying, you'll hear God say it differently unto you. And the reason why connecting with God is such a big deal is because of this. Yes, all of the steps that I gave is practical, and please apply it. But when you connect with God, he will tell you this. And those who do this know this. He will tell you that your value is not found in what you do. It is in who you are, and it is in who he is. And it is because of what he's done is what makes you valuable. But it takes wisdom to even begin to see that. It takes wisdom to even connect with God in a way that says, God, show me my purpose. And he speaks to you when you connect with him, and he shows you why he designed you and the purpose and the reasonings of why he placed you here. But it is known the reasons that the scriptures, Proverbs, all of these great people, when they speak, they're saying to pursue this one thing, to go after this one thing, wisdom. To get wisdom, to pursue wisdom. And when we connect with God, he will be able to share with you that no one else can share with. And how he will say it is no one else in the world that can say it like him. So I advise you all to get this book and look at this resource and learn the ways that you connect with God. But these 4 steps here, to be aware of your need, your neediness for wisdom. To know that you have this desperation that, God, I need wisdom. Just like the kings and queens that were before me, how they spoke to their children and say, pursue wisdom with all of your heart. God, we need wisdom. And to get into a place where we can spot foolishness and avoid foolishness, or when we're living in that loop, to avoid the loop. We have to know what it looks like, and we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be the people around us. We have to seek God so that we can avoid that loop. Then we have to live in the present. We have to live in the present. We have to journey with wisdom and have the mindset and the concept that wisdom is someone who's walking with me, not a destination and a place that I'm looking forward to going to. We always have something to become wiser in. And the 4th thing is this, and the most important thing is to connect with God, because he will speak to you in a way that no one else can and tell you already that you are valuable. So the bottom line is this: pursuing wisdom helps us to live a life of value. In that space in between A and B, we can live this life of wisdom. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much that you've given us this ancient text full of rich wisdom and sayings from those who walked before us. God, I pray, Lord, that we pursue wisdom, that we think to ourselves that we need it and we need to get it, that it's not something that naturally comes, but we say to ourselves, God, we will pursue after wisdom. We love you and we bless you and we thank you for this day. In your name we pray, amen.